spiritual and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, and promoting a just and sustainable world. If you would like to learn more about this fellowship, please take a look at our website at uufe.org. And please join us after the service for cookies in the gathering place, cookies and coffee in the gathering place. I'm glad to see we have chapeaus today. I inadvertently wore mine up here, so I wouldn't mind that. I'd like to say a few words about our service this morning. First of all, we're breaking a rule that we made at the board meeting on Wednesday night, and sometime I'll explain that rule, but that's what UUs do. The message today complements the member musing that Pam Wycliffe gave last week and deals with the need for ownership rather than just volunteerism in our small congregations, especially given the fact that at least temporarily we are a lay-led congregation. Speaking of ownership, I'd like to acknowledge and thank both Pam Wycliffe and Mike Darnell, who spent the chilly morning yesterday cleaning up the grounds around the fellowship in preparation for Vern Thomas's memorial service next Saturday. The program you will hear today is not a typical Easter service. Rev Phil Lund is the congregational life consultant for the Mid-America region at the UUA. He uses statistics from all organized religions to reinforce the decline in church participation and attendance across the nation for all denominations in the last 40 years. But as you listen, you will realize that Reverend Lund does hold out hope for the future of Unitarian Universalism in the form of congregational ownership by its members. What does that mean for those of us who enjoy the important social benefits that belonging to a religious community provides? How do we imagine and manage the tension between hope and realism when it comes to the future of our faith? Reverend Lund helps us to explore what we as Unitarian Universalists can do for religion today and in the future. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear better today.
Yes.
All right. It's a work in progress, folks. So, technology is wonderful, but we're always battling with little gremlins or whatever get in the way of, you just wish you could just flip a switch and just be smooth sailing. But so I'm Carl Russ. I'm the president of the board, and we've been doing a thing on Sunday mornings where I get up and speak. And one reason I wanted to do that was just to give a familiar face, especially when we weren't coming in person. So we talked at the board, and maybe we don't need to do that every Sunday. But I do want to brag a little bit about my nephew. Brian Rust is my nephew, and he's not a kid. We tend to think of nephews and nieces as these little kids screwing around. He's in his 50s, but he's just a brilliant composer and musician, but I'm just really proud of him, and I'm glad that we were able to use one of his songs at the beginning of the service. So Wednesday night we had a board meeting, quite a long board meeting. As you might imagine, we had a lot of things to talk about. So I think on the Sundays after the board meeting, I'm going to get up and just say a little bit about what we talked about. And of course, the minutes will be available. You can read those. So we celebrated the parking lot victory. Yay! We have a lot of work to do, folks, and we talked a little bit about parking and all kinds of things, but we're going to keep you informed of that and let you know what's going on. Small group results. So Pam has done a great job in compiling round one, and we're going to get that out to you in a variety of ways. And we just decided as a board, we're just going to give you the raw information. Just not try to summarize it or shrink it down or anything. We're just going to tell you what people said. And we're going to try to make that available on the website, through email, And if you want a hard copy, we're going to make some hard copies available. Really interesting information. A lot of divergent opinions. I'm sure you're surprised about that. Yes.
Make sure they know it's anonymous. We're not gonna...
No, we didn't put anybody's name. You might recognize your own or your group input, but we didn't put anybody's name. Just giving you the information. Nominating committee met a while back, and we have temporarily appointed Mary Adams and Linda Gill as voting members of the board. So I think we're back up to 7, right? And we're kind of discussing that 8th position, decide what we want to do. But welcome Linda and Mary, and they were a great asset at the meeting. Vern Thomas Memorial Service this Saturday. I think we're not very coordinated because I'm playing phone tag with the funeral director. So I'm trying to get some information about exactly what they have planned and see how can we fit in and help out. But I would say if you want to help out, if you don't hear anything more, which you should, just come about noon on Saturday and we'll put you to work. Okay, big discussion about the minister. What kind of ministry do we want and what can we afford? So right now the board is kind of, I think a consensus of the board is we can't afford a full-time minister right now. We're open to your opinions on that. But like I keep saying when I get up here, if you really want a full-time minister, you're going to have to increase your pledge, because the only way, I mean, technically we can afford it, but we'd have to borrow from the endowment. And I don't know if we want to keep going there all the time. So that's still discussing, but we're looking at some other options, including part-time, and continue doing what we're doing. Let's see. I think that's all I have to say about the board meeting. But welcome everybody, and Judy's going to give us some fellowship life.
Good morning, everybody. Okay. We're going to start with some sad news today. Our longtime friend, Randy Pickley, has passed away, and I will share more information about her passing as I learn about it. I don't even know when she passed away. Randy Pickley? Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay. The membership committee is looking for greeters. We had a nice volunteer this morning. Thank you very much, Marianne. About once a month, your tasks would include greeting worshipers, distributing orders of service, and passing the collection bowls. Contact Joan Claiborne for more information. And this is a good way to reconnect with people we haven't seen for a while. The Indiana Center for Middle East Peace is hosting a conference in Fort Wayne this Saturday, April 23rd. It is entitled, We Are the Earth, Environmental Justice, a Moral Imperative, Global, National, Local. Workshops will be presented by several organizations. There's more information on posters on the bulletin board, or at least a poster on the bulletin board outside the restrooms. It would be so good to have a group of us attend so we could have a report from each of the workshops. But as we've been reminded a couple of times, Vern Thomas's memorial service is also on Saturday. Vern was a longtime member and very active in the adult forum. His service is here at 1 o'clock with a luncheon afterward at Bangkok Place. If you plan to attend the luncheon, let Oksana know by Wednesday so that Vern's family can make reservations. Oksana's phone number is in the directory, and I think she's online, so she's not. She can maybe wave at us so we know who she is. Okay, there we go. Okay. Hi. Good morning, Oksana. Okay, Wednesday feasters will meet at 11:30. Wednesday the 27th. That's next week. Also at Bangkok Place, which is at 705 County Road 6 here in Elkhart. If you plan to attend, be sure to notify Mary Adams by Monday the 25th. If we can see her, maybe she can wave her hand as well. No, okay, sorry. We can't see you waving, Mary, too bad. Anyway, so she needs to reserve tables, so her phone number and email are in the directory as well. If you haven't signed up for the County Road 9 cleanup already, please do so soon. There's room enough on the team for everyone, and Carl gave us a little bit of a hint of what we'll be doing in the video. We will meet at the CVS store on the corner of Bristol and Johnson at 9 a.m. on Saturday, April 30th, for equipment and assignments. And I will share a big pan of brownies and some iced tea at the church afterwards. And we've got quite a few people signed up already, so if someone else wants to bring a snack as well, I won't complain. The rain date or snow date is May 7th, and the sign-up sheet is on the island, and the more the merrier. Okay. Janelle Crump is willing to help us with our spring cleaning by hosting a media sales table from Sunday, May 8th through, is it Sunday, May 23rd? So, yes. Do you want to stand up and wave your hand, Janelle, so everybody knows who you are? Okay, there we go. So gather your books, CDs, DVDs, cassettes, and videotapes that are cluttering your media center and drop them off in the minister's office by May 4th. If getting them here is a challenge, contact them and Janelle can give you a hand with that. So. And looking into June, our General Assembly will be taking place from June 22nd to 26th. It will be online and in person in Portland, Oregon. We are entitled to 2 delegates, but being a multi-platform convention, you can participate from the comfort of your coziest chair here in Michiana. And just as okay, this year's WARE lecturer will be Ibram X. Kendi. I've gotten it wrong the past 2 times I've talked about this. But he is the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist. This year's WARE lecturer, oh, I said that already. And just as interesting will be a multitude of workshops. If you'd like to attend, Google the UUA General Assembly, and it will take you to the information you need to register, or you can just find out about it. If you'd like to be a delegate and vote on UUA policies, there are UUFE funds available. So talk to Ken Claiborne about that. And last week's offering brought $33 to share with the Elkhart Women's Shelter. This week's offering, again, will be shared with the shelter, and the collection bowls are on the island, Ivy Island there in the foyer. Thank you very much.
We ring our gong 3 times, once for those who came before us and made a place for us. Once for those who are here now. And once for those who will come after us and build on the dream. Along with the idea of ownership, the Worship and Arts Committee is asking for volunteers to help with some of the elements of the service. As long as we're lay-led, there are still lots of things that had been done previously by the minister or a much larger Worship and Arts Committee. One of those things is ringing the gong, just as I did, and deciding on a chalice lighting verse or statement of some sort, and then actually lighting the chalice. And since we have this beautiful refurbished chalice, thanks to the Darnells, I was going to show you how I was taught to light the chalice when I first joined the Worship and Arts group. You could use a match, but we found that matches are unreliable. You're standing here striking, and I don't know how anything burns down when you can't get a match to light, but it does. And even those candle lighters, which Bert Tetzloff, one of our interim ministers, said, it looks like you're lighting it with a gun. But even those, you can try to hold something down and flick something else, and it doesn't seem to, when you most want it to work, it lets you down. So what I was told, and what we've tried to do since then, is in this clay pot that I believe was made by Cameo Victor, we have what we call a friendship candle. The rededication of the chalice this morning has a writing by Thomas Rhodes that was chosen by Mike and Judy Darnell. The first two lines of the chalice lighting rededication are going to be read by the entire congregation. We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart, dedicate this chalice to truth, to community, and to commitment.
Recognizing that each person possesses a portion of the greater truth and knowing that no one may comprehend truth in its entirety, we affirm that this flame shall always represent the light of truth. May its light ever extend our vision, that we may ever appreciate the diverse ways in which reality is revealed.
Recognizing that we need one another as surely as we need food, clothing, and shelter, and knowing that life has no meaning unless it is shared, we affirm that this flame shall always represent the warmth of community. May its glow enfold all who gather in its presence, and may all who search for understanding find their welcome here.
Recognizing that human relationships are rightly built on trust, justice, and love, and knowing that these values may be compromised by fear and doubt, we affirm that this flame shall always represent the fire of commitment.
May this fire always burn fiercely within us as we commit ourselves to the values of our faith. Amen.
Amen.
So be it, and blessed be.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant.
As a staff person for the Mid-America region who works primarily with small congregations, I've had the opportunity to observe just how much things have changed in our religious communities since the pandemic began in early 2020, when in-person Sunday services were canceled and buildings were closed, as it became clear how serious the pandemic was and continues to be. And even though most congregations were able to quickly pivot to gathering online, it wasn't and still isn't quite the same. Doing church has changed dramatically since the pandemic struck. But the need for change wasn't necessarily caused by the pandemic. The general attitude toward religion in America was already in the midst of a marked transformation, a transformation that has only been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Almost 15 years ago, Holly Ann Lux Sullivan, a UU minister who is currently a bereavement counselor in North Carolina, delivered a sermon that exemplifies how the attitude toward religion has changed in the United States. In a Barnes & Noble before Easter, she writes, I watched a woman glance at a table of books and make a face like she just tasted something awful. Then she hurried on by as if she were afraid the books would bite. Curious, I looked to see what she had grimaced at. All the books on the table were about religion, primarily Christianity. They had titles like Misquoting Jesus and What Jesus Really Meant. All I could think was, is this what we've done to God? Is that what we've done to religion? Is American religion today in such a sad state that when someone sees a table full of religion books in a bookstore, she scurries away and looks like she's going to be sick? The answer is yes, says Lux Sullivan. This is what we've done to religion. And the truth is, something has happened to religion over the last few decades. Fewer and fewer people are members of religious organizations, and more people are identifying as spiritual but not religious, or nuns. In fact, there were a few polls and surveys released last year that make clear just how profound these changes have been. Consider this headline from an article on Gallup's website. U.S. church membership falls below majority for first time. And the story highlights, in 2020, 47% of U.S. adults belong to a church, synagogue, or mosque. Down more than 20 points from turn of century. Change primarily due to rise in Americans with no religious preference. Even though I've been aware of this decline since I was in seminary over 20 years ago, I was still shocked to see it. And when I say that, I'm not exaggerating. I was shocked. This graph from the Gallup article shows just how dramatic the downturn is. According to the article, Americans' membership in houses of worship continued to decline last year, dropping below 50% for the first time in Gallup's 8-decade trend. In 2020, 47% of Americans say they belong to a church, synagogue, or mosque, down from 50% in 2018 and 70% in 1999. U.S. church membership was 73% when Gallup first measured it in 1937 and remained near 70% for the next 6 decades before beginning a steady decline around the turn of the 21st century. This milestone of church membership falling below 50% of Americans is truly alarming, and it's especially alarming for small congregations. And frankly, it leaves me a little disheartened. I truly believe being part of a religious community, be it a church, synagogue, or mosque, has real benefits, spiritual, emotional, even physical. Along with the decline in membership, there's been a drop in worship attendance too. The latest Faith Communities Today survey reports that there has been a decline in median worship attendance among U.S. congregations since 2000, the year they started tracking trends in the U.S. religious landscape. 20 years ago, the median worship attendance was 137. In 2020, that number was 65, a 50% drop in attendance. This fall off is consistent among all congregations. It doesn't matter if their membership is growing, plateauing, or declining. So, what are we supposed to do with this news? In her sermon, What Can We Do for Religion Today?, Holly Ann Lux Sullivan offers this suggestion. Being hopefully realistic in the face of adversity is what we can do for religion today. It's a great idea, but to be honest, being hopefully realistic at this point in the 21st century can be difficult. There are so many heartbreaking things happening right now. More and more of the Antarctic ice shelf is falling into the ocean. Over 800,000 Americans dying of COVID. The foundations of the democratic society being threatened at home and around the world. The refusal by many of our fellow citizens to confront the racial and economic injustices of our society. Still, I think there is some hope to be found, but to get there we need to start with being realistic. We need to go a little deeper into what this decline in church membership means for us as Unitarian Universalists, especially those of us whose primary experience of Unitarian Universalism is in small congregations. To do that, I'd like to take a look at another survey that came out last year, this time from the Public Religion Research Institute. What I like about PRRI's 2020 Census of American Religion, which was published last July, is that it actually includes Unitarian Universalists, just barely. If you look at this chart from their census, you'll see that Unitarian Universalists are the last religious group they mention by name, right before other religion, which is where most other surveys of religion put UUs. And you'll note that folks who identify as Unitarian Universalists are an incredibly small percentage of Americans, 0.2% of the population, smaller than the percentage of those who identify as Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Jewish, Jehovah's Witness, and certainly smaller than those who identify as Protestant or Catholic. We are, and always have been, a very small religious group in the United States and around the world. And I believe that this is the first reality we need to face. With fewer and fewer people identifying with any religion, and with increasingly smaller numbers of those who do identify with a religion actually attending a church, synagogue, or mosque, the potential for small congregations to attract new people decreases. The PRRI census mentions another reality that I think we must face. Unitarian Universalists are one of the oldest groups in terms of median age. The median age for all Americans is 47. For white evangelical Protestants, it's 56. For white Catholics, it's 54. And for Unitarian Universalists, it's 53. By contrast, the median age of those who identify as unaffiliated is 38. 36 for Buddhists and Hindus, and 33 for Muslims. The reality is that we are collectively older and have been that way for some time. Here's a third reality I believe we need to face up to. Unitarian Universalists are, along with Hindu and Jewish Americans, most likely to have college degrees. 53% of Unitarian Universalists have 4-year college degrees or higher, compared to 36% of the U.S. population, age 25 and older. 36% is, by the way, the same percentage of the religiously unaffiliated who have a 4-year college degree or higher. That's the reality then. We are a very small group in terms of the percentage of Americans who identify as Unitarian Universalists, 0.2%. We also are an older group in terms of our median age, 53, 15 years older than the median age of the unaffiliated. And in terms of educational attainment, we have more in common with Hindu and Jewish Americans than we have with Americans who identify with other religious groups. There's one more reality check I'd like to offer, and this one comes directly from our UUA, specifically the membership statistics from 1961, when the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America merged, to 2020. In 1961, there were 1,035 congregations with 151,557 adult members and 77,546 RE enrollments. In 2020, there were 1,027 congregations with 152,921 adult members. Not bad, eh? Only 7 fewer congregations and 1,364 more adult members. But here's the reality. In 2020, there were only 34,768 RE enrollments. That means when we look at the combined adult membership and RE enrollments, we've gone from 229,103 in 1961 to 187,689 in 2020, a decline of 41,414. Back in 2005, Larry Ladd, the UUA financial advisor, said this in his report to General Assembly. For 4 years in a row, I have written in this report that the declines in religious education enrollments should be a warning signal for our movement. And indeed, less than 5 years after Ladd shared his warning, the adult membership in the UUA began to decline after years of small but steady growth, and it continues to decline to this day. So here's the reality. Unitarian Universalism in America is a small group of older, educated adults that is declining in numbers, and that was before the COVID-19 pandemic struck. At this point in the sermon, I wish I could get to the hope, but we need to acknowledge that the pandemic has exacerbated the impact of these realities. Here's what a recent article in the Wall Street Journal says about the situation. The number of churchgoers has steadily dropped in the U.S. over the past few decades, but COVID-19 and its lockdown restrictions accelerated that fall. In-person church attendance is roughly 30 to 50% lower than it was before the pandemic. While religious leaders expect some rebound once the pandemic recedes, many don't expect attendance to return to previous levels. And as Rob Dyer, lead consultant for Ministry Architects, said in a blog post last September, as our society is opening up more and more, people are starting to pick up the weight of busy lives again. With the pandemic and virus variants over their heads, people are finding that they have a reduced capacity for weight bearing. Even joyful activities are getting sidelined in this new normal. Now the church is realizing something not just about young adults, but about people of all ages in our churches. They're not coming back. The super volunteers who used to carry 20 positions in the church are now looking to do just a few things. Our regular attenders are becoming semi-regular, and fringe folk are falling away. Church consultant Carrie Nieuwhof is even more explicit. The great return to church has become the great realization. Maybe they're not coming back. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever. So enough with the reality already. Where's the hope? It may seem simplistic, maybe even corny, but when I think about the hope for Unitarian Universalism, I think about the 1,000 plus UU congregations around the country, and more importantly, the people who keep those congregations going. In other words, I'm thinking about you, each of you, the ones who are still here after all the hardships and heartbreaks of the last 2 years. But what does it mean to still be here as we enter the 3rd year of the COVID-19 pandemic? Consider this distinction from Carrie Nieuwhof. Pre-COVID, in growing, plateauing, and declining churches, you could break people down who were part of your church into 2 primary categories: members and attenders, and engagers. Think of members and attenders as just that, people who joined your church and or people who attended but rarely moved beyond that. Think of engagers, on the other hand, as, well, members and attenders who engaged in a way far beyond church attendance. Before the pandemic, it was possible for most congregations to survive with this sort of division between members, attenders on one hand, and engagers on the other. But the current reality is different. As Rob Dyer said, super volunteers are now looking to do just a few things, regular attenders are becoming semi-regular, and fringe folk are falling away. The Gallup poll report put it this way: churches are only as strong as their membership and are dependent on their members for financial support and service to keep operating. Because it is unlikely that people who do not have a religious preference will become church members, the challenge for church leaders is to encourage those who do affiliate with a specific faith to become formal and active church members. This is pretty much what Kerry Newhoff suggests when he says, turn your remaining attendees into engagers. And like most of the things that I've been talking about today, this is not an idea that's new with the pandemic. The need for attenders to be more fully engaged with their congregations has been around before COVID-19. Here's another story from a minister that occurred around Easter time. It's from the Irreverent blog by Aaron Wathen on the website Patheos. I was writing my weekly note to the congregation, a few days late because I took Monday off and it's all downhill from there. Usually in this note I share a few words about the message for Sunday so we can all be reflecting on the same topic throughout the week. It makes the sermon more of an ongoing conversation. I sometimes discuss something that's going on in the life of the church as well, but this week it was more of a thank you note, because when I think about how much work my church folks did over the last few weeks to get our place ready for Easter, it blows my mind. And as I look around the property, I can see the fruits of many hours of shared labor. Sparkling windows and floors, finely manicured landscaping, dramatic paramounts hung with a complex pulley system by dedicated house elves in the wee hours. And then I start thinking about the work of the worship team, the children's ministry team, and musicians, not to mention the greeters, handshakers, bulletin hander-outers, and coffee makers, and the youth group out there hiding eggs for the little ones, plus more behind-the-scenes workers I have not mentioned. Just thinking about it makes me overwhelmed with gratitude. It's enough to make my mascara run. I'm not crying, you are. In writing this note to my people, I wrote that it takes a whole village of volunteers to make all of this happen. But then I found myself hitting the backspace button because volunteer is not quite the right word for what our people do at church. I know I'm not the only one who cringes when someone sees me without kids in tow and asks if my husband is babysitting. Well, no. I mean, yes, he is at home with the kids tonight, but I do not think you can effectively say babysitting when it's your own dang kid. I'd say we could just call that parenting. I feel the same way when people talk about volunteering at church. And yes, I know it's just a word, but it's the wrong word for a lot of reasons. To volunteer means that you are an outside resource stepping in to help an organization in need. Volunteering is what you do when we pick up trash at the park, or build a house with Habitat, or help sort food at the local food pantry. Volunteering is what I do at my kids' school on Fridays. In other words, it's what you do at a place that is important to you, but not at a place that belongs to you. And I guess that is the important distinction for me. You cannot volunteer at your own church in the same way you cannot babysit your own kid, because the church belongs to you in the same way your family does. It's your own place, your own people. So of course you help take care of it. Of course you do yard work and make coffee and teach the kids and sing in the choir and whatever else it is you do for the home and the people that you love. It's your own place, your own people, so of course you help take care of it. This was true in 2017 when Aaron Wathen wrote those words, and it's 10, 20, 100 times truer in 2022. The hope for our congregations lies in all of us doing what needs to be done to make sure our spiritual homes are here for the people that we love. And in doing so, we're making sure that our congregations are here for the people in our communities who are still seeking a spiritual home. People who share our common values of believing in the worthiness of every person, showing compassion and fairness, accepting others for who they are, growing through a personal search for truth, leading with democratic spirit, working for justice, understanding that everything is interconnected, and building a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. If our congregations have any hope of surviving, this is it. Even the Wall Street Journal acknowledges that a tighter congregation of devoted members will be stronger in the long run. Now is the time to heed the advice of Carrie Nieuwhof, who asks us to focus on the people who stayed, not the people who left, and embrace our new church. To close, I'd like to offer this reading from Starhawk called Community Builds Strength. It sums up perfectly why it's so important for each of us to embrace our congregations and do what needs to be done to make sure our spiritual homes are here for the people that we love. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned. We can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free. May your congregation be such a place.
you.